Hello and welcome to the Klassiki Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Goff. Klassiki is your window into the world of Eastern European film. Subscribers gain access to our library of classic and contemporary titles, as well as filmmaker interviews, video introductions, program notes, and much more. You can sign up for a free trial today at klassiki.online. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe in your podcast app of choice, and remember you can always get in touch with us at podcast@klassiki.online. For many cinephiles, the Central Asian states remain something of a blind spot, prey to misapprehensions and stereotyping. It's still rare to hear from film workers on the ground in the region. Case in point is Uzbekistan, whose film industry stretches back to the silent era, but which rarely comes onto our radar here in the Anglophone world. To try and provide some insight into what it's like to actually do the work in this part of the world, this week I spoke with Julia Shaginurova. Julia, together with her partner Michael Borodin, is at the heart of efforts to build an independent film culture in Uzbekistan. She's a producer, writer, and advocate, and a co-founder with Michael of the Tashkent Film School. She also helps to run Women Watch Uzbekistan, a program to encourage female filmmakers in the country, which this year we're proud to say we're running a partnership with here at Klassiki. I invited Julia onto the pod to tell me about the challenges and the opportunities for independent filmmakers and audiences in Uzbekistan, from funding to censorship and more. We also touched on the situation in Central Asia more broadly. You can watch Michael Borodin's fantastic feature film Convenience Store on Klassiki now by following the link in the show description, where you'll also find more information about Julia and Michael's work at the Tashkent Film School. Julia, thanks so much for joining us on the Klassiki Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Thank
So, Klassiki has this partnership upcoming in Tashkent with Women Watch Uzbekistan, which is one of the projects that you're involved in, and that's partly why we wanted to talk to you today, but also kind of take this opportunity to explore this idea of independent film culture in Uzbekistan more broadly, because I think it's the kind of country, the kind of culture, maybe even the kind of region that tends to be a blind spot for people. I think it's really good to have opportunity to explore how film culture works in these different places. So we'll get to that as well. But I guess the first question is, maybe you could just kind of outline the work that you and your partner Michael Borodin do, because I mean your fingers are in many pies. You're doing all sorts of different activities, but maybe you could just kind of like outline what it is that you and Michael do day to day and the kind of projects that you're working on.
Well, thank you for the question. Actually, I'm always very happy to talk more about Uzbekistan in general as a region, because as you rightfully said, it's a blind spot for many. In a way, it's another planet. Also, it's beautiful country with friendly, beautiful people. Me and Michael, we are a director and producer. We're also writing together, and we have a lot of projects together, like films, a lot of films in development. We made several documentaries. We collaborated on Michael's fiction film Продукты 24, Convenience Store.
Which you can watch on Klassiki now. I'll just insert that.
Yes, which
Delighted
everyone
to have
can
that
watch on
fantastic film.
Klassiki.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, we always both had this idea of independent, democratic film school. Michael is a self-educated filmmaker, which I find remarkable, because you can. It's a very complicated profession, and one who learned it on their own is someone to admire. So we both had this idea of filmmaking education needed to be like democratized, so to say, needed
Mm.
to be more open to young people. And when the full-fledged invasion to Ukraine happened, Michael was at that point in Russia. He had emigrated to Russia 10 years before. He lived there. He went back to Uzbekistan, the country he loved, when it was still a very harsh dictatorship. So
Yeah.
he decided to go back, and then we reviewed like all our projects, what we can still do together, and we got back to this idea of founding a film school. We were very lucky at that point, as we had a commission project for a documentary series about Uzbekistan. It's available online, by the way. It's called Uzbekistan Stories. So we had actually some funds, and we had equipment we could share with the future school. And we started it like as a grassroots initiative there. And it was very well received by the local young filmmakers. So now Tashkent Film School is an educational hub for supplementary filmmaking education for young people. And so far, we have over 20 films completed
Feature
by the
films.
students. No,
Ah.
short student films. And actually, some films were quite successful. We had films within the Berlinale lineup. Several films were showcased in Wiesbaden Go East Film Festival. Our students were also pitching overseas.
Can you just tell us about
And
these films that featured in Berlinale this year? You had a feature in the forum section of Berlin this year. Is that right?
well, actually, the feature in the forum is a film, a documentary by Kristina Mikhailova. It was not actually shaped anyway by our school, but Kristina is a friend. She is also a very active producer in Kazakhstan, and she twice was a participant of our mentoring program for
Ah,
women,
right. Yeah.
Women Watch Uzbekistan, um, which is focused on female filmmakers and producers.
Well, I think so. Yes, I guess that speaks to something which I wanted to talk about maybe later, which is the way
Mhm.
that in Central Asia there's a kind of transnational aspect to this independent film culture. Yeah. So you just mentioned. I mean, there's so many threads I want to pick up on in what you've said. I want to talk about Michael's Film Convenience Store. I'd love to talk more
Mhm.
about this idea of film education. Let's maybe just stick with the film school and this idea of education. So you were saying there that there was this idea that film education needed to be democratized, and I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that quote unquote official film education in a country like Uzbekistan is quite sclerotic. Like there's an establishment film school, an establishment studio, like affiliated with the state, like in a lot of kind of post-Soviet countries, which to be euphemistic, doesn't necessarily breed innovative thinking or filmmaking. Am I right to say that that's the case in Uzbekistan, and that's why there was this kind of demand on the ground for a different way of gaining these skills?
Well, you may put it like this, definitely.
Thank you.
There was like three film schools in Tashkent. I'd say the very traditional. They stick a lot to the Soviet tradition of filmmaking and film education. And there are also, I'd say, censorship limitations from the side of the teaching staff. So they're very, very cautious of what students film, of their ideas, of their
Right.
scripts. And as I see it, people really crave for some freedom in
Right.
the process. Also, of course, young filmmakers, just like any filmmakers, and in Uzbekistan, they are quite, limited in resources to make their
Yeah, I was
films.
going to say that's the next question, really, isn't it?
When we started the film school, we actually did not expect such craving and such demand, especially in this regard, how people want to work freely, how they want to be, how they appreciate being advised politely, even
I see.
how they, yeah, yeah, um, how they appreciate this respectful exchange between mentors and students, and also what we always wanted to offer and what we do is teaching people or giving them tools how to make their films as low budget as possible. And what we managed to create, and we're very proud of it, is a community of artists and filmmakers who collaborate a lot
Right.
um, among each other. And that's, I think it's a very, very good beginning, because um, I also hope that the industry is going to develop itself. There will be more films, more projects, more independent producers. It means people actually, there will be already a community where they can feel good, where they can have help from their
Yeah.
friends. So,
So the work that gets produced uh, at your film school, is it screened anywhere? Like, is it? I presume it's kind of watched and discussed within the school. But do these young filmmakers who you're working with, are they putting on, kind of screenings programs of their
mm,
own films? I did want to get into the screening culture question, but maybe that's a way
mm.
towards it.
Oh, that's a really good question. We we found from the very start this need in a screening place where people can just come and watch films, and it was also very important for us to make a place where they can watch films in a real good quality.
Yeah.
And we also wanted a cinema for a place for the school where we can screen films professionally. It is often that people, young people who are even into films, who are very much craving for this culture, they have only seen the films on the laptop,
Yeah.
on the screen of their computers. There are very few film theaters in Uzbekistan, and it's so you can even watch like big Hollywood productions on big screen, but the places for watching independent films are lacking. And so we made a theater for ourselves, for the school, and then we opened it to the public. And we show the independent films.
Amazing.
European productions. I think we are the only place who does it like legally. So we always acquire rights, and we screen films in original language, and that's rare
Right, yeah. I mean,
with the subtitles.
this is always the question. Film requires such an infrastructure, but it's a kind of
Hmm.
it's an interpersonal and a technical
Hmm.
infrastructure. Like you say, you have to have the collaborative community because there's so many different skill sets involved in producing films. You have to have quite high cost
Hmm.
physical space and equipment to make and then to show. It's a huge undertaking, but it sounds like an amazing kind of response to your recognizing those needs. I guess maybe we're kind of moving in this direction of talking more broadly about the film culture and the
Yeah,
film
but
culture in Uzbekistan.
in fact, you asked me about where you can watch the films the
Yeah,
students make, and that's exactly the place, the the cinema, and what we also observe is a high interest of the local audiences to Central Asian films. It's
right.
amazing that like
So
even
audience
if you,
outside of the kind of film school cohort
yeah, yeah.
and like
So
demographically, like not just young people, people of all.
mostly young people.
Okay,
They're very much interested in what Uzbek filmmakers film, and they're also very much excited to see the films from other Central Asian countries.
right.
So,
So yeah, like just speaking more broadly to this question of the film culture in
mhm,
Uzbekistan, we mentioned, the part of the framing for this conversation, right, was that Uzbekistan is a blind spot for a lot of people, and where you have blind spots, you have presumptions and prejudices and so on. And I think that for a lot of people, kind of English speaking audiences, if they have an idea about, let's say, Central Asia more broadly or Uzbekistan, it would be bound up with this idea of a kind of post-Soviet authoritarianism and a kind of a heavy censorship culture, and so on. So yeah, like I mean, like what are the kind of contours of film culture in Uzbekistan? You've spoken a bit about the screening culture there, and you spoke a bit about how the kind of official film education bodies are maybe stuck in the past somewhat. I mean, like, what are the conditions at the moment, say, for filmmakers in terms of censorship they're working with, or kind of access to funding? Yeah, like let's broaden that a little bit and to talk a bit more about the film culture in Uzbekistan, the actual material conditions for people.
yeah, I'd get back to this blind spot concept.
Yeah.
I once had um, a conversation with a woman from Slovakia, you know,
Hmm.
which is often mixed up with Slovenia, by the way. But um, it was, I think it was after the premiere of the convenience store in Berlin. And she told me, you know what? There are like four countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. Can you briefly explain me the difference? And I'd say,
How
like,
briefly?
how briefly? Like, will 2 days be enough? So these four countries are very, very different. They speak different languages, and even within Uzbekistan, there are several languages spoken. And also in the terms of how the film industry is developed and how people approach independent filmmaking, it's very, very different, and it's also very factual. I say it very much depends on the politics, and the
Yeah.
politics sometimes the politics is turbulent. On the one hand, it's very stable. On the other hand, there are always some changes, and there are some very sad similarities. Like the resources are very, very limited for the independent filmmakers, even in Kazakhstan, which is very developed in the means of commercial production. An independent documentary, for example, the one like Christina's you mentioned, is always made with a lot of sacrifice. Like
Yeah.
people invest a lot of their time, they invest their own money. They are very limited in regard of travels,
Yeah.
because getting a visa is already a quest, and then the plane tickets are very, very expensive. And then you go to Europe and you have to live there like for 3, 4, 5 days for a market. And there is no guarantee that you will get anything for your film. So in this regard, all these countries are close and similar. I think Tajikistan is like the most disadvantaged country.
Yeah.
As for Uzbekistan, there are all official structures. You have like in any country, and officially, I think you can go for a funding to those structures, but like everyone knows that it's a monopoly. There is one big film which appears each year, but some national hero
Right. Yeah.
from the past. As for independent filmmakers, they often do the films through the film schools,
Right.
whatever it costs. They often do the films on their own, and this is also where they need advice, and also where they need a sort of a way to showcase what they do outside their country. And that is probably where we actually are helpful to them.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're talking there about how there are obviously similarities between, if we're talking about
Hmm.
kind of these Central Asian countries, right? There are obviously similarities between
Hmm.
them. But one thing I find really interesting is how, and one
Hmm.
thing I think people who don't, pay attention to that region might not get is that like the way that these conditions change over time. So, I mean, like, okay, take for instance, you said that Michael, sorry, moved back to Uzbekistan after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and lots of Russians moved to lots of countries, including in Central Asia,
Hmm.
because in lots of ways those countries were freer as a result
Hmm.
of that. And like the degrees of cultural or social freedom within Central Asian countries fluctuate all the time. I remember Kyrgyzstan was long held up as the most democratic
Yeah, you're
country,
right.
the most normalized, whatever that term means, kind of country in Central Asia. Whereas someone like Uzbekistan was always, towards the bottom of this so-called ranking. And now Kyrgyzstan is undergoing this very troubling kind of transformation, whereas Uzbekistan now is seen as more open. So it's important to note how these things change over time if you're trying to get rid of this idea of a monolithic Central Asian post-Soviet Central Asian region, right? I mean, where does Uzbekistan stand at the moment in terms of things like representation of LGBTQ themes? Say that's often something that people in the West love to hold up as a barometer of cultural freedom. Just as an example, maybe it's not a super useful question.
Well, if we take this barometer, then Uzbekistan is like at a very, very, very low point. But this refers, unfortunately, to all Central Asian countries right now. They're very, the authorities are very sensitive to these topics. The Uzbekistan, I think, kept even this Soviet time law about about LGBTQ people, and it's actually I never heard about this law being applied to anyone, but I know it exists. Yeah, so if we take this parameter, then we cannot talk about freedom, right? In all other aspects, it's like in many post-Soviet countries, especially in Central Asia, it's hybrid. So you can never actually predict how far you can go with your freedoms. I can only say that in our theater, we never show censored films. We show them as they are. And we are not, and also, of course, in school, we are open to anyone, to people of all the communities, where we have very diverse student collective and also mentors collective. We only have to think about the security of our students, our filmmakers, and our projects, and we know how to do that.
And I guess maybe relatedly, the Women Watch Uzbekistan, which is this project that Klassiki is partnering with you this year, and which is coming up in March, right? It's probably a few days after this episode will come out, I think, is when it will kick off this mini festival in Tashkent. What's the situation for female filmmakers and film viewers? What is the need that Women Watch Uzbekistan is attempting to address, and what's the situation for female filmmakers, would you say, or aspiring female filmmakers?
Well, that's universal.
Sure,
as I see this,
I'm not trying to exoticize Uzbekistan at all here. Quite the opposite.
The situation of a female filmmakers is always a bit more disadvantaged than for the male filmmakers. I can only say that women filmmakers in Central Asia and in Uzbekistan as well are way more active than men. And
why do you think that is?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. I think that that's so this is the profession where you cannot make a lot of money, and you're not that capable of supporting your family if you are a filmmaker, right? So I think women are allowed more liberty in this regard, that they are not readers. They do not have to make a lot of money.
Right.
So that's actually, in this case, it's where men are suffering more, probably. And it's also that generally women or young girls, they are allowed to do arts before they marry. And that's where another pressure starts. So we have one of our wonderful mentors, Umida Akhmedova. She's a documentary photographer and documentary filmmaker. She once said to me, well, I'm so sad to see these girls learning so hard just before they get married, because you don't know whether they will be allowed afterwards to do what they want. But in Tashkent, for example, it is absolutely not that, let's say, hard. or dramatic. It's when we speak about young people, they're very, very free, like in their minds. There are a lot of limitations, so to say, put on them by the society. There are a lot of expectations, like having a family and pretty young, or having a proper job to support the families and to behave. But otherwise, they really crave for being independent, being free, thinking freely. And I'd say women are very, very active in this. So actually, Women Watch Uzbekistan started as a mentoring program for women. We had 2 editions, which were pretty successful. One of our participants, by the way, was a part of Berlinale Shorts this year.
Oh, great.
I actually came up with this idea of Women Watch Uzbekistan because when we started, we had the meetups for different groups in Tashkent. And there was women in production would meet up, where I saw we opened the registration and we had to close it in 3 hours because it was full immediately. And there was a group of, I think, 30 amazing women. They all worked in production. Some were producers, some were makeup artists, costume directors, but they were all dreaming of being directors themselves. They all wanted to write and they all wanted to film. But I mostly saw them on serving position. And I wanted to make something, to do something for them, to make some kind of an initiative which will bring them together, where they can learn from each other, where they can collaborate, where they can be inspired by each other. And after the 2 editions, I actually wanted to inspire them even more. So to bring the new films by women filmmakers from all over the world, and also to show the films from our participants from the past years. So yeah, so for Women Watch Uzbekistan screenings, we wanted to bring new, independent, and bold films to Uzbekistan for the audiences to see and appreciate women-made films.
So one thing that we've touched on, but I'd quite like to just get a bit more of your take on, is this idea of people involved in these kind of independent film projects across Central Asia necessarily having to work together, because that's just the situation. There are a number of kind of political or social similarities across these countries, despite them all being very different, and like there is a kind of shared heritage, and like there may within any individual country there may not be enough funding or expertise or know-how, but that there is this kind of regional culture. So could you just speak a little bit about the ways in which Central Asia has a kind of regional independent film culture?
I think that's where a wish comes before necessity. People look at each other with a lot of interest, even excitement. They like watching each other films. So if you truly want to feel the atmosphere of support and friendship, you should go to even a small Central Asian market or film festival. That's where people genuinely support each other, where they're happy for each other. When, for example, the prize is awarded, that's very, I'd say, touching. That's what I always like to observe. And there are a lot of industry events in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan where local communities are always very, very welcoming and very excited to see filmmakers, producers, and cultural managers from Uzbekistan. Also, with Central Asia, it is that the whole region is a little bit falling into the gap between
Right.
the European and South Asian markets. Even if you look at the guidelines of any European industry events, big European industry events where people are invited, you will see that Central Asian countries are not included. It also refers to South Asian big events. So, and getting back to these industry aspects, I also observe that even if a market or a grant is available for Central Asian artists on paper, in reality, it doesn't work this way. It is too distant. Say if a festival or a market pays the travel costs or accommodation, the travel costs mainly, they understand that it would be like really, really difficult for them to invite someone over from Central Asia, or probably it is just too distant, mentally too distant in the means of how life is different in these regions. So it is very important for me to like build these bridges.
Yeah.
And I think like somehow we succeeded. It is for me, it's always not enough. But I know I'm greedy in this regard. I always want only more discoveries, more Central Asian artists and filmmakers present on the international scene. But even if you look at the um, film festivals, like for past 3-4 years, there's more and more.
Mm.
So previously there were mostly directors and films from Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan is very active and also has more resources,
Yeah.
and they have very experienced, tough producers. But now we see more and more films from other countries as well, and we see a lot of interest. And there are great international initiatives working, like Docmont is very active for several years in Central Asia.
I mean, it's not just a question of getting Central Asian filmmakers or films into, say, Europe, right? I mean, there's also the question of the kind of inequalities that can exist in terms of making films within the region. I remember it would have been end of the 2010s. I was in Almaty in Kazakhstan at a documentary film festival and watching documentaries about Central Asian subjects. I remember watching a documentary about the Pamir region, the mountainous region in Tajikistan, and someone telling me, and it was a film by, I believe, a Dutch filmmaker, and someone telling me, well, a Tajik person would never get a permit to go and shoot in Pamir, but a Dutch person can not just turn up, but, it was a lot easier for a Dutch person to do that than it would have been for a Tajik filmmaker, which I thought was quite interesting. The inequalities exist everywhere. The inequalities are global and movable as much as the opportunities and the collaboration are global and movable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right.
Well, it's amazing to hear about this work that you're doing. It's amazing for Klassiki to be a small part of your Women Watch Uzbekistan events, and we really look forward to hearing about everything that's going on there, and would implore people to watch Michael Borodin's film Convenience Store, which is on Klassiki, an amazing film. I think the kind of film that's really needed because to help people understand the region, because it's about Uzbekistan, but it's also about Uzbekistan's relationship with Russia. and the kind of histories of exploitation and migration that are built in there. Super interesting film, so we'll link that in this episode as well. But yet, for now, we'll leave it there. Julia Shaginurova, thanks so much for talking to us about Uzbekistan and about all the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.